imagine holding a book. Just paper and ink. Feels like maybe a pound or two. Yet somehow, inside those pages, entire worlds get built, governments can actually fall, and the way we think can be completely reshaped. It's not just entertainment, is it? It's real power. Power so deep that history itself sometimes seems to bend around these words. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're setting out on a journey, looking at 6 really extraordinary books that didn't just sit on a shelf, they actively changed the world. We're talking about works that revolutionaries quoted, parliaments debated, books that sparked actual movements that shifted history. Our list for this deep dive comes from hooktobooks.com's 101 Best Books of All Time. And from that, we've picked out 6 that, they fundamentally rewrote the rules, how we think, how we live, how we even see ourselves. Now, you might be thinking, okay, are we talking about those dusty old classics from school? And yeah, some of them are, but here's the thing. They aren't just, historical artifacts. These books are alive. They're still influencing us, the conversations we have right now, the ideas we wrestle with, our societies, often in ways we don't even realize. So settle in. Join us as we dig into how a few brave writers, really armed with nothing but words, managed to change, pretty much everything. Okay, first up, early 17th century Spain. Not exactly an easy time or place, especially for a guy named Miguel de Cervantes. His life. Wow, it was tough. He was a soldier, lost the use of his left hand in battle. Then he gets captured by pirates, held for ransom. He even ended up in prison for debt. Fate really dealt him a rough hand.
It really did. But sometimes, the best art comes out of the worst circumstances. And that seems to be the case here. So in 1605, Cervantes publishes Don Quixote. And you could say almost accidentally, he invents the modern novel as we know it.
Right, because his original idea was actually pretty modest, wasn't it? He just wanted to write a parody. At the time, these chivalric romances were huge, the type. Brave knight, beautiful damsel, evil dragon, big glorious quest, always a happy ending.
Exactly, they were everywhere. But Cervantes had this brilliant, almost subversive idea that went way beyond just making fun of them. He thought, what of the knight? What if he was completely, utterly delusional?
And boom, Don Quixote is born. A middle-aged guy who's read so many romance novels, he's convinced he is a knight-errant out for glory. He looks at windmills.
Sees monstrous giants to fight.
Right. Sees a local peasant girl.
And she becomes this noble lady, Dulcinea.
And his horse, this broken-down old nag.
Is Rocinante a mighty steed ready for battle?
And here's what's so genius about this. In creating Quixote, Cervantes kind of stumbled onto so many things. He gave us one of the first unreliable narrators, right?
Absolutely. You're seeing the world through the eyes of someone whose reality is, let's say, skewed. It forces you, the reader, to constantly question what's real.
And he basically pioneered the character study, getting deep inside this guy's head.
And what we now call metafiction, a story that kind of knows it's a story. It plays with the whole idea of narrative. It was just nothing like it existed before. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Beyond just the literary verse, Don Quixote didn't just change books. It fundamentally challenged how we think about truth itself.
How so?
Well, think about Quixote. He's delusional, yes. But in his delusion, he often acts with incredible nobility. He sees beauty where everyone else sees, ugliness or just plain old windmills. He's fighting for justice, even if it's a justice only he perceives. He's striving for this ideal, this higher purpose, even if it's all in his head.
Ah, okay. So Cervantes is asking something deeper.
Exactly. He poses this question that, honestly, we're still wrestling with today. Is it better to live in the harsh, maybe ugly reality? Or is there something noble, something meaningful in living for a beautiful delusion, even one you create yourself?
That's a heavy question.
It's a paradox, right?
Yeah.
And it's fascinated people for centuries, this tension between our internal worlds and the external world.
And the book itself, it took off immediately.
Oh, massively. One of the first international bestsellers. Translated everywhere super fast. Its influence is just undeniable.
You can really see its DNA in later writers, can't you? Like Dostoevsky.
Absolutely. Yep. Dostoevsky's characters are often grappling with those same intense internal struggles, questioning reality, sanity. Very quixotic in a way.
And Dickens, too, with his sometimes eccentric, larger-than-life characters.
Definitely. That focus on the gap between how people see themselves and how the world sees them. That deep dive into character psychology.
Yeah.
There's a clear line back to Cervantes. And what's also kind of wild is the political echo it had. Unexpectedly.
Political.
Well, there's a pretty strong argument that the American Revolution actually drew some inspiration from Don Quixote.
Really? The Founding Fathers?
Yeah, think about it. They were facing this seemingly impossible task, fighting the British Empire. Some historians suggest they saw themselves as these idealistic Quixotes, tilting at the giant windmill of tyranny, fighting for principles that maybe seemed unrealistic to the rest of the world.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. That spirit of noble, maybe hopeless resistance.
Exactly.
And today, it feels almost disturbingly relevant.
Doesn't it? With social media bubbles creating these tailored realities and the whole constant argument about alternative facts.
It's exhausting.
It is. And Don Quixote suddenly feels very modern. We're all kind of living in our own curated echo chambers, aren't we?
Yeah.
Tilting at our own digital windmills.
So that question Cervantes asked 400 years ago, it's still the big one. How do we tell the difference between the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives we want to believe, and, the world as it actually is?
It's a core challenge, isn't it? Especially now. Where do you see those Quixote echoes most strongly today?
For me, it's that constant fight just to figure out what's real online. When everything is curated, filtered, spun, it's a battle for clarity almost, a mental battle.
Of course.
So if you're someone who loves books that really make you question everything, that dig into perception itself, or maybe if you've ever felt like you're fighting some impossible battle for a cause only you truly see, well, Don Quixote is definitely, for you, still a profound read. Okay, let's jump forward now. We're in 1852 America, Brunswick, Maine, actually. And there's a woman there, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who is just consumed with fury.
Right, the Fugitive Slave Act had just passed, a truly brutal law.
It meant that even people in free states were legally required to help capture and return escaped slaves. Harriet, who was a preacher's daughter, a mother, she was horrified.
And she wasn't, a radical activist in the way we might think of one today. She might have even called herself just a housewife, mother of 7.
But she had this incredible power, this secret weapon. She could write stories that made people feel, really feel.
An extraordinary gift, translating these huge abstract injustices into something deeply personal for the reader.
So, fueled by this just immense moral outrage, she writes Uncle Tom's Cabin. And it's a dramatic claim, but you could argue she accidentally started the Civil War.
It sounds like hyperbole, but there's truth to it. That famous, maybe slightly misquoted line from Lincoln. So you're the little woman who wrote the book that made this great war. Whether he said exactly that or not, the sentiment was spot on. Her book lit a fire.
Absolutely. The story itself follows Uncle Tom, this gentle, deeply faithful enslaved man sold away from his family. His journey gets progressively more harrowing.
But the real genius, the revolutionary part, wasn't just the plot. It was how Stowe told it.
Exactly. She didn't just hit people with facts and arguments against slavery. She made them feel it. She pulled them into the emotional reality of being enslaved.
Brought it right into their living rooms, their hearts. Forced them to confront the cruelty.
I always think of that scene with Eliza escaping across the frozen Ohio River, leaping from ice floe to ice floe, holding her child.
Just desperate. She knows her son is about to be sold. It's pure terror and maternal love.
And when people read that, they didn't just think slavery was wrong. They felt it deep down. The fear, the injustice, it hit them in a way pamphlets just couldn't.
Visceral.
The impact was just staggering, wasn't it?
Unbelievable for the time. 300,000 copies sold in the first year in the U.S. alone. That's like, 4 million copies today? Huge numbers.
And it went way beyond the U.S.
Oh, yeah. 1.5 million copies in Britain.
Yeah.
And then came the stage adaptations, the Tom shows.
Right. Those were everywhere in the North.
They brought the story to life for people who maybe hadn't even read the book. Seeing Eliza on the ice, seeing Tom's suffering, it drove the message home, made it impossible to ignore. Slavery became this deeply emotional, unavoidable public issue.
But it's also important to acknowledge the complexities, right? The book wasn't perfect.
Definitely not. And this is fascinating and crucial for understanding its legacy. While it did immense good, Uncle Tom's Cabin also, unfortunately, reinforced some harmful stereotypes.
Like the overly noble, long-suffering slave figure.
Exactly. Or caricatures like Topsy. Stowe's goal was to make enslaved people seem human and relatable, even non-threatening, to her white audience, to build that bridge of empathy.
Which worked, clearly.
It worked incredibly well at mobilizing sentiment. But that approach, while effective then, did contribute to these problematic archetypes that unfortunately stuck around in how Black Americans were portrayed for a long, long time.
It's a really important nuance. Still, its power was undeniable. It shifted opinions in the North so much.
That many historians argue it made the Civil War inevitable. By the time Lincoln was elected and states started seceding, the book had created this deep moral and emotional divide that politics just couldn't fix anymore.
So connecting this to the bigger picture,
Hmm.
what's the enduring lesson here?
I think it's a profound lesson about the power of storytelling itself. Facts inform us. Arguments persuade us intellectually. But stories change how we feel.
They tap into empathy.
Exactly. They make us internalize things. And how we feel, well, that shapes how we vote, how we act, how we live our lives, ultimately.
It's incredible that one narrative could do that on such a scale. Why do you think that direct emotional connection was so much more powerful than just facts back then?
Because it bypasses our intellectual defenses, I think. You can argue with a fact, rationalize it away, ignore it. But feeling a mother's terror for her child, that's much harder to dismiss. It makes the abstract real and often unbearable.
So this book is still incredibly relevant if you're interested in literature as a real engine for social change.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Or if you want to see how one person's moral outrage channeled into a story can literally change the course of history by putting human faces on huge, abstract problems.
Words as weapons for justice, but aimed at the heart. All right, let's shift gears quite dramatically. We're heading to a different kind of revolution now. Not political, not social, but scientific. Right down to the bedrock of how we understand life itself. Picture Charles Darwin. It's 1859. He's pacing his study, holding this manuscript.
And he knows it's going to upset basically everyone.
Right. He'd been sitting on this theory for, what, over 20 years?
Yeah, decades of hesitation. Because he knew that his book on the origin of species, I know it's not fiction, but its impact on everything, including literature and philosophy, is so huge, it absolutely belongs in this deep dive. He knew it would challenge the most fundamental story humans told about themselves.
Well, it's a story of creation.
Exactly. It flew directly in the face of established religious belief, but also the scientific consensus of the time, which saw species as fixed, unchanging, divinely made.
So let's unpack the big idea. What Darwin figured out, largely from his voyage on the Beagle, was, well, revolutionary.
Utterly. He argued that species weren't fixed. They evolved. And crucially, it wasn't through some grand plan or design.
No divine blueprint.
No, it was through this relentless, undirected process he called natural selection.
Okay, break that down simply.
Basically, individuals with traits that made them better suited to their specific environment were more likely to survive, more likely to reproduce, and more likely to pass those helpful traits on.
Survival of the fittest, essentially, although that phrase came later.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So fittest just means best adapted to that particular environment. And over vast stretches of time, Darwin argued, this gradual accumulation of advantageous traits led to all the incredible diversity of life we see.
Which sounds like basic biology to us now, accepted science.
Accepted science now, yes. But in 1859, whoa, heresy. Absolute heresy. It knocked humanity off its pedestal, put us right in the mix with all other animals, all subject to the same natural processes.
He captured his own sense of awe, though, didn't he, in that famous final paragraph?
Oh, beautifully. There is grandeur in this view of life. He saw the beauty in it, even as he knew it would terrify many. From so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved.
The reaction was immediate, right? Explosive.
Instantaneous.
Yeah.
The first edition sold out on day one. Scientific societies blew up with furious debates. Churches denounced it from pulpits everywhere. It was seen as a direct attack on faith.
And that famous Oxford debate.
Right, 1860. Bishop Wilberforce trying to mock Thomas Huxley. Was it through your grandfather or your grandmother that you claimed descent from a monkey?
And Huxley's classic comeback.
That he'd rather be descended from an ape than from a man who uses his intelligence to obscure the truth. Ouch. It was fierce.
But the impact went way beyond just science labs and church halls.
Oh, absolutely. This is key. Darwin's ideas fundamentally reshaped literature, philosophy, how we thought about human nature itself. Suddenly, writers and thinkers were wrestling with these huge questions. Progress, competition, survival, our place in a godless universe, maybe?
The whole Victorian era seems obsessed with it. Social Darwinism emerges.
Which is a really important tragic point. Social Darwinism was a gross distortion, a dangerous misapplication of Darwin's biological ideas onto human society.
How so?
People used it to justify horrible things. Eugenics trying to breed better humans.
Yes.
Scientific racism creating false hierarchies between races. Even justifying extreme economic inequality, saying the rich were just naturally fitter.
Darwin himself would have been horrified, wouldn't he?
Absolutely horrified. His actual point was about biological adaptation to environment, not some cosmic justification for might makes right among humans. His own writings show a deep belief in human empathy and morality, completely counter to those brutal interpretations.
It's chilling how a scientific idea can be twisted like that. Thinking about its legacy today, what's the biggest philosophical question Darwin left us with?
For me, it's the question of meaning and purpose. If we are, in fact, products of these natural, undirected processes, not special creations, what does that mean for human dignity, for morality? Where do we find purpose?
If the universe wasn't made for us.
Exactly. It forces us to look elsewhere for meaning, maybe to create it ourselves. It's a profound challenge we still grapple with.
So even though evolution is now foundational science,
The deeper questions Darwin unleashed are still very much alive.
so if you love books that just shake your entire worldview, force you to rethink everything, or if you're curious how one scientific idea can ripple out and change culture itself, Darwin's work is a powerful example. One meticulously argued book changing, well, everything. Okay, let's jump forward again.
Post-World War II, London. There's a writer there, George Orwell. He's sick, he's broke, he's feeling pretty paranoid.
And he's just witnessed the absolute horror of totalitarianism. Stalin's Russia, Hitler's Germany. He saw how power could utterly corrupt and control.
So he sits down not just to write a story, but a warning, a really dire warning to humanity. And in 1948, he finishes it. He calls it 1984.
Possibly the most terrifying novel ever written. It paints this chilling picture, doesn't it? This dystopian future where the government, the party, led by the figurehead Big Brother, sees everything, knows everything.
It's total control, not just your actions, but your thoughts, your memories, even the language you use.
And the main character, Winston Smith, his job is at the Ministry of Truth, which is anything but.
Right. His job is literally to rewrite history, constantly.
Yeah.
If the party needs yesterday's defeat to be today's victory, Winston makes it so. All past records are altered, incinerated in the memory hole.
Truth becomes whatever the party says it is. Fluid, malleable.
But maybe the most terrifying part, the real kicker in the book,
Is that people go along with it?
they don't just go along with it, they actively participate. They seem to love Big Brother, they embrace the oppression, defend the system that controls them. That's the truly chilling insight.
When it first came out in 49, people read it as like dark sci-fi, right? And a warning about some distant future.
Yeah, a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
This could happen if we're not careful.
But today,
Lende.
it feels different. It feels
Right.
less like a warning and more like...
An instruction manual sometimes.
Exactly. The parallels are just uncanny, unsettlingly so.
And think about the language it gave us. Words and concepts that are now just part of our everyday talk.
Big Brother, thought crime, doublethink believing two contradictory things at once, memory hole.
When we call something Orwellian,
We know exactly what that means thanks to this book. Orwell didn't just predict aspects of the future, he gave us the vocabulary to describe it.
and what's really fascinating is how well Orwell understood power. He knew that the most effective control isn't always brute force.
No jackbooted thugs needed.
Not always. He saw that real lasting control comes when you make people complicit, when you make them want the systems that monitor and manipulate them, often by offering convenience or connection or security in return.
Which sounds disturbingly familiar.
Doesn't it? Think about the devices we all carry. Tracking our location, listening sometimes.
Recording everything.
We post our private thoughts online, feed data into algorithms that analyze us, sell us things, shape what we see.
We've almost gamified our own surveillance with likes and shares.
Exactly. We willingly participate in the very systems Orwell warned us about.
It's a really chilling thought. Thinking about the Ministry of Truth, rewriting history. How do you see that playing out now?
I think you see it in how easily narratives can be shaped online, how quickly misinformation spreads, how inconvenient truths can be buried or shouted down. It's not always a government ministry. Sometimes it's a collective drift where the loudest voices or the most appealing lies reshape reality. The line between fact and fiction gets incredibly blurry.
The book itself has had a massive impact globally, hasn't it? Banned in some places.
Oh yeah, banned in the Soviet Union, of
Yeah.
course. Too close to home, but also challenged in schools in the West sometimes. Too bleak, too controversial.
And the sales still spike, right, whenever there's a scandal or more surveillance news.
Absolutely. After the Edward Snowden revelations about NSA spying, sales jumped something like 7,000%. It tells you how much it still resonates, how people reach for it to understand what's happening. Which brings up, I think, Orwell's deeper warning. It wasn't just about government spying, though that's part of it.
What was the deeper thing?
It was about the fragility of truth itself. In Oceania, the government doesn't just lie. It makes objective truth impossible. Reality is whatever the party dictates at that moment. History is constantly erased and rewritten.
And if you destroy objective truth,
You destroy the possibility of real freedom. Because how can you resist? How can you even think for yourself if you don't have a shared reality to stand on?
so for listeners today, navigating this information chaos.
But 1984 feels essential. It's terrifying, yes, but it's also kind of a survival guide.
How so?
It shows you exactly how tyranny works, how it creeps in, but it also shows you how to recognize it, how to resist it, even just in your own mind.
It's not about despair, then.
I don't think so. It's dark, incredibly dark. But the underlying message is vigilance. Insist that 2 + 2 = 4. Guard your own thoughts. Hold on to objective reality, however difficult that seems. As long as we do that, there's hope.
Okay, next stop. Suburban America, 1950s. On the surface, everything looks perfect.
White picket fences,
Yeah.
any new washing machines, happy housewives, the whole advertised American dream package.
But one woman, Betty Friedan, she wasn't feeling it. She was a housewife, living that dream in the suburbs, 3 kids, husband, everything society said should make her happy.
And yet she was miserable, deeply, profoundly unhappy.
And she realized her friends were too. They felt this emptiness, this dissatisfaction, but they couldn't quite name it.
Exactly. So in 1963, Friedan publishes The Feminine Mystique. And what she did was incredibly powerful. She gave a name to something millions of women were feeling but couldn't articulate.
The problem that has no name.
That's the famous phrase. This strange stirring, this sense of dissatisfaction that came from being told relentlessly that being a wife and mother was the only path to fulfillment for a woman. Now, this one's nonfiction, not a novel, but its impact, just world-changing.
Absolutely massive. It belongs here because it transformed culture, literature, society. Friedan argued that society had built this myth, the feminine mystique, that basically said women find ultimate meaning only through domesticity.
And this myth, she argued, was essentially suffocating women.
Choking the life out of a whole generation of smart, capable women, leaving them feeling empty, maybe even depressed. What was so radical about her argument back then?
It wasn't just about equal rights, like equal pay, though that came from it. It was more fundamental. She argued for equal humanity.
Meaning?
The right for women to be full people, with ambitions, careers, intellectual lives that went beyond the home, the right to self-actualization, just like men were soon to have. It was a call to be recognized as complete individuals.
Those opening lines are still so striking, aren't they? The problem lay buried, unspoken.
A strange stirring, a sense of dissatisfaction. Each suburban wife struggled with it alone. It just captured that silent isolation so perfectly.
And the reaction when it came out?
Explosive. Women reading it had this moment of, oh my God, it's not just me. I'm not crazy. I'm not ungrateful.
A huge collective awakening.
Exactly. And that sparked the second wave of feminism. Consciousness-raising groups popped up everywhere, women just talking, sharing experiences, realizing their personal problems were political, systemic.
And it led to real action. Demands for equal pay, opportunities, reproductive rights.
And the founding of the National Organization for Women, NW, just 3 years later. With Friedan as the first president, the link is direct.
But like with Stowe, it's important to see the nuances, the limitations.
Yes, absolutely. Friedan was primarily writing from the perspective of and about white, middle-class, educated, suburban women. Her analysis didn't fully capture the different realities of working-class women, women of color, single moms who were already working, often out of necessity.
Their struggles were different.
Very different, often involving race and class issues that Friedan's initial framework didn't fully address. But acknowledging that doesn't take away from the book's absolutely pivotal role in igniting a movement that did eventually broaden to include more voices.
Right. So even with those limitations, how did just naming that problem change things so fundamentally?
It broke the silence. It created a shared language, a shared identity for millions of women who felt alone. It validated their feelings, legitimized their desire for more, and allowed a public conversation to finally begin. It shattered that monolithic myth of the happy housewife.
Yeah, it just gave women permission to want more. Challenged that whole idea that your biology dictates your entire destiny as a person.
Precisely.
And the ripples are everywhere today, aren't they? Every woman pursuing a career she loves, every couple trying to build a truly equal partnership, every girl told she can be anything.
It all connects back in some way to the conversation Friedan started.
So, if you're interested in how just telling an uncomfortable truth can shake up society, or how movements start by giving people words for their own lives, The Feminine Mystique is a landmark. Okay, for our last book, we're heading somewhere completely different. A revolution not in politics or science, but in storytelling itself. Picture Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Mexico City, 1960s. He's trying to figure out how to tell the story of Latin America, this vast, complex, often unbelievable story.
And the challenge was huge, right? How do you capture a reality where, seemingly impossible things happen all the time? Dictators living for centuries, towns forgetting their past, the line between dream and reality just vanishingly thin.
How do you write that? His answer was 100 Years of Solitude. And in writing it, he basically created a whole new way of seeing the world through literature.
A new lens, yeah.
The book follows the Buendia family and their mythical town, Macondo, over a century. A big, sprawling family saga.
Definitely not your standard saga. In Macondo, the extraordinary is just normal.
Float.
It rains for almost 5 years straight.
A character is followed everywhere by yellow butterflies.
A woman is so beautiful, men literally die looking at her.
It's not really fantasy, though, is it? It's magical realism.
Exactly. Garcia Marquez perfected it. And the genius is the magic isn't treated as magic. It's woven seamlessly into everyday life. It just is. The characters react to miracles like they're just another Tuesday.
Which totally messes with your head as a reader, in the best way.
And here's why that was so revolutionary, especially globally. For centuries, Western literature had mostly insisted on this hard line, real versus unreal, rational versus mystical.
This is reality, that is fantasy, clear separation.
Right. Garcia Marquez basically said, hold on, that's one way of seeing things, a very European way perhaps. But down here in Latin America, magic and reality, they dance together. Every day they're intertwined.
He was validating a different kind of reality.
Precisely. Liberating storytelling from this narrow, Eurocentric box. Asserting that other cultures perceive the world differently and those perceptions are just as valid.
That opening line is legendary, isn't it? Sets the tone perfectly.
Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice.
It just jumps. Past, present, future, all in one sentence. Death and childhood memory side by side.
Exactly. Time isn't linear. Cause and effect get blurry. The miraculous is mundane. That's the whole book right there.
And the world went crazy for it.
Absolutely nuts. Huge international bestseller, translated everywhere. People were captivated. It felt entirely new.
Helped him win the Nobel Prize, too.
It did in 1982. But maybe more importantly, connecting it to the bigger picture, this book blew the doors open for writers from all over the global South.
How so?
It gave them permission, in a way, to tell their stories using their own traditions, their own sense of reality, without feeling like they had to fit into a Western mold. Think Salman Rushdie, Isabel Allende, Toni Morrison. They all, in different ways, explored realities that didn't fit neat Western categories, showing that reality looks very different depending on where you're standing. It was like literary decolonization.
Beyond the magic, though, there's a deeper layer about history, right? The Buendias seem trapped.
Oh, yeah. They're caught in these cycles. Repeating wars, repeating love affairs, repeating tragedies, generation after generation.
Like Latin America itself.
That's the strong implication.
Yeah.
Garcia Marquez seemed to be suggesting the region was caught in its own historical cycles. Colonization, revolution, disappointment, repeat. History isn't progress. It's a spiral, maybe even a circle.
So what's the takeaway for us, despite all that solitude, all that repetition?
The Buendias keep going. They keep loving, dreaming, creating. The act of storytelling itself, the book itself, feels like an act of resistance. Resistance against being forgotten, against despair, against those crushing cycles.
Even if things seem fated, imagination keeps fighting.
Exactly. It's a testament to resilience through narrative.
Oh.
How do you think this specific blending of the fantastic and the everyday challenges our own default view of what's real?
I think it forces us to question those neat boxes we put reality into. Maybe the world is stranger, more wondrous, more inexplicable than our rational minds usually admit. It kind of validates those moments in our own lives, our own family stories that feel a bit magical or too strange to be true.
It isn't a place to belong.
Yeah. So if you've ever felt your own stories are too weird for conventional telling, or if you suspect reality's got more magic in it than we usually acknowledge, 100 Years of Solitude just blows the doors off your perception of what reality and literature can be. Hashtag tag tag outro, and wow. That brings our deep dive to a close. 6 books, 6 worlds, 6 ways the world was changed.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? From Cervantes basically inventing the novel while questioning truth itself.
to Garcia Marquez completely reimagining reality with magical realism.
From Harriet Beecher Stowe's incredible moral force sparking a war.
To Orwell's chilling warnings about control that feel more relevant every year.
And from Darwin rewriting the entire story of life.
To Betty Friedan awakening half the world to demand more than just existence.
Yeah. What really strikes me, though, is how these books aren't just historical artifacts. They're still speaking. Loudly.
Right. Cervantes' questions about reality hit home with deepfakes. Orwell is staring back at us from our phone screens. Friedan's points about fulfillment are still part of conversations about work-life balance and expectations.
They changed the world, I think, not by giving easy answers. They didn't tie everything up neatly.
No simple solutions here.
No. They changed things because they dared to ask better questions, bigger questions. They forced people to see themselves and their world and their possibilities in a completely new light.
You know, books really are like time machines, aren't they? When you open one of these, you're not just reading, you're stepping into this amazing ongoing conversation.
Across centuries sometimes, with these incredible minds.
Yeah, and you get to add your own thoughts, your own voice to this huge discussion about, well, everything. What it means to be human, what kind of world we want, the stories we tell ourselves.
It's a powerful connection.
It really is. So the next time someone maybe dismisses books, says they don't matter in our digital age, just remember these stories.
Remember, words on a page started a war.
Launched a scientific revolution.
Awakened millions to new possibilities. Words have power, tangible power.
The conversation absolutely continues. So the question is, what will you add to it?
Hookedtobooks.com, where stories begin and readers belong.